Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today for the last video of the year. I had originally planned for this to be the day of a year-end errata of my videos, but I realized last week the first of the year was on Saturday this year, which is just overall a better day to do an errata. Which means I had to come up with a topic for another Loremaster's Library at the last minute. So, after I looked over everything we received tabletop-wise this year, from African representation to various kinds of sciences, I decided the best option was magic schools. With our trip to the Magambia with Pathfinder, and D&D bringing us D&D players a trip to Strixhaven this last month, I think looking over the topic of magic schools and the place in fiction would be nice, quick, messy, last-minute topic for today. So, students, ready to learn? First up, we need to look at what a university is. Yes, we know what schools are. This is the historical background section. I would die if I did not have one in any of my videos, so. The oldest known place of communal learning was the Plato School, founded in 387 BC. It existed until 529, when teaching by pagans was prohibited by the Byzantine Empire. A closer step to what we think of as schools were madrasas, the first being Muhammad teaching on a hillside estate. It was the Fatima el-Fihri in Morocco, known today as the, and I'm going to butcher this, University of El-Qarawiyyin, I think, something close to that, anyway, which became what is thought of as the first university. However, magic schools are most commonly connected to European literature, so let's move the focus towards Europe. Here, it started as simple monastic teachings, focused on the trivium and the quadrivium, or as I like to call them, the 3 and the 4. Grammar, rhetoric, and logic for the former 3, and arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy for the latter. The earliest universities were created by papal decree, while many later universities were designed by kings or towns. Europe's oldest currently existing university, the University of Wagner, which was established in 1088, was also the first university to be formally formed through the guild systems, which formed the basis of what we know of today as schools. And over the years, universities have been fleshed out and changed a bit by large happenings like the rediscovery of Aristotle's works, and of course the latter scientific revolution. Now let's throw the magic into magic school. The first place where learning magic comes up in folklore is with Pope Sylvester II, who was said to have learned magic in Moorish Spain's University of Cordoba. For reference, he died in 1003. Similarly, the Icelandic hero Sheymundur the Learned studied magic at an unspecified magic school in France. He died in 1133. Of course, the legendary Faust studied all subjects known to man, including magic. Those stories have given different accounts of whether he went to the University of Krakow or the University of Wittenberg. Going into actual schools being specialized in just magic, one of the first we have is the legend of Dom Daniel. First appearing in an English translation of the Arabian Nights, and not the first translation, mind you. This is a school hidden under the ocean where evil magicians, spirits, and, worst of all, gnomes meet. Following up on this is Scholomance, the legendary devil school in Transylvania, where only 7 pupils, or 10 or 13 depending on your source, were taught magic and the secrets of nature over 7 to 9 years. And they were also required to expand on the curriculum by writing their entire knowledge into the mythical Solomonar book at graduation. Well, this legend might have gone around a long time. It first appeared in writing in 1885 in Transylvania Superstitions, a book which also included Dracula myths, which helped inspire Bram Stoker for his book. Now, before walking away from folklore and into fiction, if I'm going to cover this topic, we need to step back into the real world. Because these occult magic schools did not only affect fictional trends, it also affected the real world. Time for a brief interview of New Age-based beliefs. Don't worry, I will not go deep into the negative as I did this last week. Magic schools are not a topic that can really be factually wrong or misused. Either way, many groups which took part of the dogma from occultism or looked into old lore took the concept of magic schools and applied their own practices to the concept, especially with Aleister Crowley, well, being Aleister Crowley. Therefore, it is common for many occult groups to refer to themselves as schools in homage of the old legends. There are also various mail-order organizations which claim to teach one magic, though I recommend caution to sign up at your own risk. With that brief detour out of the way, it's time to look at the path of fiction leading up to, well, we know where we are going. The first mention of magic schools in the literature department was 1939, with part 1 of the Once and Future King series, titled The Sword in the Stone. Yes, the one Disney based their movie off of. Here, Madame Mim mentioned a magic school under the waves, where she learned magic, while also mentioning Merlin was homeschooled. However, the first instance of actually following a protagonist going to a magic school is the short story The Wall Around the World from 1953, followed shortly after by The Accountant, where one does not see the school but meets the teachers and hears about the protagonist's failings because he wanted to be an accountant. For other fantasy works leading up to the 90s, we have Rogue Academy from the Wizards of Earthsea, the Jedi Academy from Star Wars. Yes, the Jedi are space magicians. Not budging on that. The Unseen University from Discworld, the Right Tower from The Wheel of Time, the Invisible College from A Tough Guide to Fantasyland. All of which paved the way to 1997. This year, the Circle of Magic series published its first book, with its magic school, The Winding Circle. But everyone remembers 1997 for was The Boy with the Thunderbolt Scar, The Boy Who Lived, the largest entry into the fantasy genre since The Lord of the Rings itself, Harry Potter. I do not have to explain Harry Potter to you any more than I did Tolkien, so we can stop here for a bit to discuss just how much of an impact it has had on the genre of fiction. Well, as I was shown, we have already heard about magic schools for 60 years in fiction, and 1,000 years discussing the concept to begin with. Through how popular the series Harry Potter series is, and pure cultural osmosis, even people who are not large fans of books, or the fantasy genre in general for my generation, know the Wizarding World well. Myself, I do prefer stories which are magic hidden in the shadows of the real world than I do high fantasy. Even now, I know that local American elementary schools are using the concept of houses as an activity to motivate students. I've seen it firsthand. But most importantly are the effects it has had on the concept of magical schools in fiction, with most of the 21st century examples being partial references to Harry Potter. Well, for even in our two inspirations for looking into its tabletop bias today, Strixhaven is laid on thick with references to Harry Potter. Well, the writers of the Magambia specifically wrote the school to not just be another Hogwarts clone, ensuring to make it a respectfully created African-inspired school. After Harry Potter, we had a magic school boom. Let's speedrun some examples, starting with those that directly reference The Boy Who Lives. First, we have the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and how they, in the world of referencing literary characters, they also have The Boy Who Lived. He killed his entire school when he found out he was actually the Antichrist. Neat. In the TV series Charmed, they had a direct parody of Hogwarts in later seasons, after not having mentioned anything about a magic school in the first 8 seasons. Another Hogwarts parody, with parody turned fully up, is Toadblatt's School from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Then there is Roanoke Academy from the Rachel Griffin series, which is Harry Potter in a world with open magic and a female protagonist. For those schools that did not directly follow in Hogwarts' footsteps, first a blatant mention to too many anime to list. I would like to, but I'm not going to artificially inflate the video. World of Warcraft has a few schools. Specific shout out to Scholomance, which is directly named after the legend mentioned earlier. Fire Emblem Three Houses has the Officer Academy, where the first part of the game happens, minor spoilers. Elder Scrolls and Dragon Age obviously have many examples. Then we have break bills from the series The Magicians. I think that one also got a TV series. I remember seeing that before. In the SCP universe, there is the International Center for the Study of Unified Thaumatology, part of the organization known as the Global Occult Coalition. I am a Serpent's Hand man myself, Loremaster after all. And, of course, do I have to mention Wizard 101? And, of course, a section devoted to some of the best tabletop examples, just for my viewers. First, special mention to other magic systems, like Heptagram from Exalted or the 8 Colleges of Magic from Warhammer. However, as the largest systems, D&D and Pathfinder have a few schools to list. D&D has had itself a wide variety of magic schools, from the College of Wizardry from 2E, to the Tower of Magic from Castle Greyhawk, to the Great School of Magic from Mysteria, to the Library of Coburg from Eberron, to our new friends over at Strixhaven. And finally, our friend Pathfinder's NSC region has several prestigious institutions, including, of course, the Magambia, but also countless examples, with some of the biggest being the Academy from Corvosa, the Moratorian from Geb, and the Arcanumerium from Absalom. I probably pronounced that last one wrong. Which has us pretty well covered when it comes to magic schools. Emphasis on magic. We started with others, so let's make this a sandwich and end with others. After all, schools of the unusual do not mean schools of magic specifically. So let's add in 3 quick highlights that I wish to cover. First, the school of the Centaur Charon the Sage, where Charon taught the greatest heroes of Greek mythology how to fight, heal, shoot a bow, military strategy, and so on. No magic, but definitely a bit different from writing and arithmetic. Another example, which is saved fantasy schools, was Miskatonic University from Lovecraft, a prestigious university which is well informed enough that many alumni can hold their own against Lovecraftian beasts. Finally, where would we be without comic books and everyone's favorite metaphor of the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution, or any other oppressed minority against racist or homophobic stand-in stereotype villains? Well, different from the likes of traditional magic schools, as there is not the sense of everyone can do anything they want, the X-Men still inspires many schools in fiction where the students have a variety of different powers, mostly at the superhuman schools. Which brings us to the last point I want to cover. Why? Where does the popularity of this genre come from? Mostly, it comes from society. In the current labor-based society of the world, as soon as people enter the workforce, most jobs tend to be stressful and life-sucking over being fulfilling. I'm not going into politics, but for many, the moment of last freedom for an adult from what adult life is school. Also, the reason why so many anime are generally set in high schools, but we are here for tabletop, so I digress. Either way, just as much as people like the idea of high fantasy adventures, they also are interested in the idealized version of school life. A nostalgic look at the times when they had friends, and bad policies from multiple political parties were not draining them of every cent. Again, no politics. Add in magic and other visitors from high fantasy, and the fact that schools tend to also suck is overlooked. And that's this week's video. I also managed to give you a large variety of magic schools through the history of fiction that many of you homebrewers out there might be able to find potential in if you ever want to build your own. Which brings us to the end of the year and our 4 weeks of Loremaster's library. It was a nice change of the norm, but I think it is time to get back to the world of Golarion. Tune in next week where I errata myself. Until then, have yourself a merry Krampus Day.